Drones in the Gulf of Oman, launched at American warships. Right now, the United States Navy and Iran are locked in the most dangerous direct military confrontation in years, and the world's most critical oil choke point is caught in the middle. What you're about to hear is not a simulation. This is happening, and what comes next could reshape the entire Middle East and send shockwaves through the global economy. This is the Strait of Hormuz crisis. Let's rewind to Sunday. Gulf of Oman. A massive Iranian-flagged cargo vessel, the MV Touska, is cutting through international waters, headed toward the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, but it never makes it. According to U.S. Central Command, the guided missile destroyer USS Spruance moves to intercept. And when the Touska's crew ignores repeated warnings for nearly 6 full hours, the Spruance runs out of patience. What happens next is extraordinary. The Spruance orders the engine room evacuated. Then it opens fire with its 5-inch deck gun, precision shots targeting the ship's propulsion system. Not to sink it, not to kill, to stop it. Cold, 900 feet of disabled Iranian cargo ship, dead in the water. That's when the helicopters come in. U.S. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit fast rope from Helos launched off the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli, a vessel designed exactly for this kind of power projection. They land on the deck, they board, they take the Touska into American custody. CENTCOM released the footage Monday morning. It is, frankly, stunning. This is the first forcible interception since the United States imposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports on April 13th. President Trump, posting on Truth Social, described the Touska as nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier. That's not just a ship, that is a statement. The Touska had reportedly left Port Klang, in Malaysia, approximately 1 week earlier. U.S. officials say they'll determine its fate after a full cargo inspection, with one option being a tow to Oman. Tehran's reaction is immediate, and it is furious. A spokesperson for Iran's Central Military Command, Khatam al-Anbiya, publicly accuses Washington of violating the ceasefire that has been in effect since April 8th. The statement is blunt. Iran's armed forces, quote, will soon respond and retaliate against this armed piracy. They call it piracy. The United States calls it law enforcement. Within hours, Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency drops a bombshell. Iranian drones have been launched against multiple American vessels operating in the Gulf of Oman. The report does not specify whether the targets are military or commercial. That ambiguity, that deliberate vagueness, is itself a message. Iran is not distinguishing between a warship and a tanker. Every vessel flying the wrong flag or carrying the wrong cargo is now potentially a target. Now let's talk about those drones, because this is where the military analysis gets critically important. Iran has spent years building one of the most sophisticated and battle-tested drone arsenals on the planet. We're talking about the Shahed family. The Shahed 136, a loitering munition with a range of over 2,000 kilometers. A slow, cheap, propeller-driven kamikaze drone that has caused catastrophic damage from Ukraine to the Red Sea. We're also looking at potential use of the Mohijer 6, a medium-altitude reconnaissance and strike platform capable of carrying precision munitions. Here's the brutal economics. A Shahed 136 costs somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to produce. Intercepting it with a Navy surface-to-air missile, a Standard Missile 2, for example, costs anywhere from $2 to $4 million per shot. Iran can launch 50 drones for the cost of one intercept. That asymmetry is not an accident. It is the strategy. Let's zoom out. Because what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now is, by any historical measure, extraordinary. 20% of the world's entire oil supply transits through this narrow strip of water every single day. 20%. Roughly 17 to 18 million barrels of crude oil, liquefied natural gas, refined products, threading through a corridor barely 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. And right now, that corridor is effectively under 2 simultaneous blockades. On one side, the United States, enforcing its naval blockade on Iranian Gulf ports, intercepting vessels it deems in violation. On the other, Iran, targeting commercial shipping attempting to navigate the strait, as it did during attacks on April 17th. Shipping insurance rates in the region have reportedly spiked. Tanker captains are making impossible calculations. Do you run the strait and risk Iranian drone strikes, or divert thousands of miles around the Cape of Good Hope and add 2 weeks to your transit? For Japan, South Korea, and India, nations that rely on Gulf crude to power their economies, this is not an abstract geopolitical chess match. This is an energy crisis in slow motion. And the Touska interception didn't happen in isolation. Reports indicate the USS Spruance had already turned back an unidentified Iranian-flagged cargo ship earlier in the blockade. This was its second confrontation. Sunday's seizure was simply the first one that didn't end with the other side backing down. But behind the satellite imagery and the weapon specifications and the economic forecasts, there are people. The crew of the Touska, dozens of merchant sailors, most of them likely Southeast Asian nationals, employed by a shipping company operating an Iranian-flagged vessel. They woke up Sunday morning to American naval gunfire punching through their engine room. They watched Marines rappel onto their deck. They had no say in the geopolitics that turned their ship into a flashpoint. And in Iran, as drone footage circulates on state media, news of the seizure spreads fast. For ordinary Iranians, already living under the weight of crushing sanctions and economic strain, the images of an American warship firing on an Iranian vessel are incendiary. This is not policy. This is humiliation. Governments that feel humiliated make dangerous decisions, which is exactly what worries the mediators most. Pakistan had brokered the April 8th ceasefire between Washington and Tehran. Talks were expected. Diplomatic channels were open. Iranian officials had already warned, before Sunday's incident, that continued American enforcement in the Strait could cause Tehran to walk away from negotiations entirely. Now, with drones in the air and a seized ship sitting dead in the Gulf of Oman, those negotiations are hanging by a thread. Open source analysis suggests that moderate voices within the Iranian leadership had been cautiously advocating for diplomatic engagement. Sunday's events hand the hardliners exactly the ammunition they needed. The argument now, why negotiate with a navy that fires on your ships? Here's where we need to assess what comes next. And the picture is not reassuring. The U.S. Navy is operating in an extremely complex threat environment. Iranian drone swarm tactics have evolved dramatically since 2019. They don't come in ones and twos. They come in waves, designed to saturate close-in weapon systems, exhaust intercept magazines, and find the gaps. The USS Tripoli and the USS Spruance are formidable platforms. But in a sustained drone campaign in confined Gulf waters, every naval planner knows the math gets harder with every salvo. On the Iranian side, the calculus is equally difficult. A direct hit on an American warship, even a minor one, crosses a threshold that risks full-scale military retaliation. Iran knows this, but political pressure domestically to respond visibly is enormous. The result? Drone launches that are designed to be seen to be provocative without necessarily being designed to kill. For now. The risk of miscalculation, a drone that gets through, a crew member killed, a captain who makes a split-second decision that spirals, is very, very real. Meanwhile, the world watches oil prices tick upward. European governments issue quiet emergency briefings. Gulf states, terrified of being caught between Washington and Tehran, are making urgent back-channel phone calls. And in Pakistan, the brokers of the ceasefire, now watching it crumble in real time, are scrambling to prevent the conversation from becoming a catastrophe. The Strait of Hormuz has seen crises before. Tanker wars, mining campaigns, speedboat swarms. But a dual blockade, with active drone strikes against U.S. Navy vessels, is something different, something more dangerous. The question is no longer whether this crisis escalates. The question is, how far does it go before someone blinks, or before someone makes a mistake that no one can take back? Stay with this channel. Because in the coming days, what happens in that 21-mile stretch of water could determine whether this remains a naval standoff or becomes the opening act of something far, far worse.